la.gov/water bill. The consumption chart has been moved to the top left of the bill and has been updated to show consumption history in gallons. Lastly, we continue to outline your itemized charges in a chart illustrating all services, including water, sewerage fees, garbage fee, safe drinking fee, and any other related charges. The Department of Waterworks staff remains committed to assisting residents and can be contacted at 985-783-5110 if you have any questions regarding your bill.
When emergencies happen, we want you to be the first to know.
But if we can't reach you, we can alert you.
That's why we need you to register for our new emergency alert system, SCP Alerts.
Signing up is easy.
So text SCP Alerts to 888-777 to get our messages.
From weather-related updates and emergencies,
To evacuations and more.
Sign up for SCP Alerts.
Because our first priority is keeping you safe.
In a natural disaster, severe weather, or local emergency, we want you to know what to do.
Through SCP Alerts, we can help you be prepared and stay safe.
Text SCP Alerts to 888-777.
When you stay ready, you don't have to go.
Good work. That's all we can do. How's the Lafourche Parish side coming? You know,
We got the inside of that building done. The bathrooms are done. We just started having church back in there like 2 weeks ago. Still got to get the rest done. Closing our loan next week. But
numbers are going good. Numbers are going
it's okay. I mean, we hadn't been in
the building for a while, yeah.
since the beginning of the year, so
It's one of those, you build it, they'll come. You get it open, they'll come.
I'm hoping. We're open, so.
That's good, look at it.
Yeah,
It'll
you're
work
right,
out.
so.
The only thing you gotta watch out for is don't bite off more than you can chew and go too fast.
You know, I would like to experience that.
You would like to, huh?
I'd like to deal with
And
that.
your business is a good thing. It's a real good thing in your business.
Yeah, that would.
Good evening and welcome to the St. Charles Parish Council meeting on Monday, March 21st at 6 p.m. in the council chambers in the parish courthouse. Please silence all electronic devices and remove all hats. This meeting is called to order with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance from Pastor Thomas Hines with Hope Church in Destrehan, due to Pastor Jason White being unavailable tonight.
Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to join with me in prayer. Father, we love you. We thank you for this day. We thank you for another opportunity to come together, Lord, and to do the work that you've called us to. I pray that, Lord, your Spirit would lead us in all that we do. I pray, Lord, for this team, Lord, our council, our leaders of our community, Lord, to have the wisdom they need to make the right plans. Lord, we pray for the unity to work through those plans, and we pray for the finance to accomplish those plans. Lord, we pray that you continue to bless our great community. Lord, a parish of plenty, Lord, but not just plenty of finance or plenty of those things are all what we need, but Lord, we need peace. We need protection. Lord, we need your blessing. And Lord, we pray for that today, and we pray for your will to be done in this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Would you join with me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you, Pastor Hines.
Thank you.
All right, approval of the minutes. I need a motion and a second to approve the meetings from the regular meeting of March 7th, 2022. I have a motion by Ms. Gordon, second by Ms. Billings. Please cast your votes. And that motion passes with 8 yeas, with Councilwoman Belloc being absent for the evening. Special business, proclamations, canvass, returns, etc. A proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. Proclamation. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a complex and ongoing problem in our society, affecting many children in our community. And whereas every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, nurtured, feel secure, and free from verbal, sexual, and emotional, as well as physical abuse and neglect. And whereas it is the responsibility of every adult who comes in contact with a child to protect that child's inalienable right to a safe, nurturing childhood. And whereas St. Charles Parish has dedicated individuals and organizations who work daily to counter the problem of child maltreatment and help parents obtain the assistance they need. And whereas our communities are stronger when all citizens become aware of child maltreatment prevention and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe, nurturing environment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships among families, social services, agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas all children and all citizens, community agencies, faith organizations, and businesses will work to increase their effort to support families. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the members of the St. Charles Parish Council and the Parish President, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in St. Charles Parish and call upon citizens and community agencies, faith groups, and businesses to increase their participation in the efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which they live. Here to accept will be Jordan Giselle.
Hello, thank y'all so much. Just a huge thank you to St. Charles Parish for y'all's support to our nonprofit year after year. Y'all always show up and are here for us, especially during the month of April. So I'm here representing Child Advocacy Services. We're a nonprofit. We have the court-appointed special advocates, our CASA program that works with the foster children in this area. And then we also have our Children's Advocacy Center, where we offer trauma-focused therapy to children who've been physically, mentally, sexually abused or neglected. So in order for us to have our services, we have a fundraiser every April, and it's Pinwheels for Prevention. So if you've ever seen the blue pinwheels out in the community, that is what we are bringing awareness to, and that's what helps fund our programs. So we thank y'all. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can visit our website, childadv.net. And again, just thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that. 2022-0075 Proclamation, Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Financial Literacy Month. Proclamation. Whereas sexual assault and financial literacy are key issues for victims of domestic and sexual violence. At the same time, one of the greatest barriers to escaping a pattern of abusive behavior is economics. And whereas today's economy is exacerbating sexual assault, at the same time, it is limiting the options for survivors to get help. And whereas 99% of women who experience physical violence in a relationship also experience some form of economic abuse. Abusers use finances as an invisible weapon to keep victims trapped in an abusive relationships. And whereas the National Network to End Domestic Violence and the Allstate Foundation has teamed up to create a unique program that is helping survivors of abuse become financially literate and independent from those who continuously perpetrate abuse against them. And whereas the Allstate Foundation Purple Purse campaign is aimed at creating long-term safety and security for the survivors through financial empowerment. The program ignites fundraising for hundreds of national, state, and local domestic violence organizations, and whereas the Metro Centers for Community Advocacy provides free and confidential services to women, children, and male survivors to enable families to regain their physical and emotional strength with the goal to provide assistance to anyone seeking help. And this is accomplished through state, federal, and local grant monies as well as donations. And whereas the mission of the Metro Centers for Community Advocacy is to break the cycle of violence and aid survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. Now therefore be it resolved, we, the members of the St. Charles Parish Council and the Parish President, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Financial Literacy in St. Charles Parish, and encourage all residents to educate themselves and speak out against sexual violence and to increase their understanding of financial stability. I think we have Mr. Mark Medina here tonight to accept it. Okay, we'll make sure we get that to them. (2022-0077), a proclamation, Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. Ms. Billings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive neurological disorder of the nervous system affecting more than 1 million people in the United States, and whereas research suggests the cause of Parkinson's disease is a combination of genetic and environmental factors, but the exact cause and progression of disease is still unknown. And whereas the symptoms of Parkinson's disease vary from person to person and can include tremors, slowness of movement and rigidity, difficulty with balance, swallowing, chewing, and speaking, cognitive impairment and dementia, mood disorders such as depression and anxiety and other symptoms, and whereas research, education, and community support services are needed to find more effective treatments and to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the St. Charles Parish Council and the Parish President, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month in St. Charles Parish, and urge all community members to learn more about Parkinson's disease from the Davis Finney's Foundation for Parkinson and support the individuals living with disease and their caregivers. We do not have anyone here tonight to collect the proclamation.
Thank you, Ms. Billings. 2022-0076, proclamation, Fair Housing Month in St. Charles Parish. Mr. Jewell.
All right. Proclamation. Whereas the 54th anniversary of the National Fair Housing Law, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 during the month of April, is an occasion for all Americans individually and collectively to rededicate themselves to the principle of freedom from housing discrimination wherever it exists. And whereas this law guarantees for each citizen the critical personal element of freely choosing a home, and whereas a fair housing law has been passed by the state of Louisiana and implementation of the law requires the positive commitment, involvement, and support of each of our citizens. And whereas the department and agencies of the state of Louisiana are to provide leadership in the effort to make fair housing not just an idea, but an ideal for all of our citizens. And whereas barriers that diminish the right and limit the options of any citizen to freely choose a home will ultimately diminish the rights and limit the limit the options of all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the St. Charles Parish Council and the Parish President, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Fair Housing Month in St. Charles Parish. And here to accept is Carla Chasson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jewell. Reports, finance, and administrative activities, 2022-0079. Parish President's remarks, reports. Mr. Jewell.
Sorry. I'll give Samantha a second here to open up the presentation. All right, March 21st, 2022. We'll start with Public Works report. Let me just give you a couple of projects that have been going around the parish. Our Public Works Department, I'll just start by saying, like, our Public Works Department is still handling tasks that are involved with, from Hurricane Ida, but we have gotten back to a lot of our work orders. That being said, there were many months where we could not work on work orders, and we do have a decreased number of field crews. We are working to try to hire more field crews to keep our crews full, but we are trying to get back to our normal routine as far as work orders go. So we've been doing a whole host of work orders. On this picture you see here, Public Works discovered culverts that were basically rotten and undersized on Lorraine Lorraine Street and Destrehan, and took the opportunity to upsize the culverts to 18 inches as a part of that routine maintenance. Over on Elmwood Drive in Destrehan, we had the culvert truck working. This was actually out today, and a resident complained of, it was actually Mr. Owen who complained of what he perceived was a block culvert, and he was correct. I wish we had the pictures of what we pulled out of there. It looked like one of our old curbside recycling bins, blue curbside recycling bins, and a lot of sticks and leaves. So we're very happy to get that out of there. It did take a few hours to get it out. So that was complete, and that just goes to show you that when you have closed culverts, that sometimes it's hard to see what the obstruction is. But we did get it out. We're excited about that. Asphalt maintenance program. You can see this is Kennedy Street in Amo. This is a completed street. But Barrier Construction is continuing their asphalt maintenance program. As the council knows, they've recently been milling and patching, as well as paving throughout the parish. See, I can learn, Nikki. We're going to be on Allen Street in Amo, Griffin Street in Amo, Kennedy Street, as you saw in the picture, Tenney Street in Booty, 4th Street in St. Rose, Short Street in St. Rose, 2nd Street in St. Rose, as well as Old Highway 90. Public Works is improving, and I believe we do have something going on Wade Street, which I don't think was on here, but we were completing some portions of Wade Street in Luling. We'll go over to Old Highway 90 and Levy Road into Zalmans. Public Works is improving the drainage ditch and the culverts near Levy Road into Zalmans to kind of keep that water flowing over there. If you're familiar with that area during heavy rains, there is a lot of water accumulation at that intersection. So we're trying to keep that water moving down towards the Tibby pump station. And then Lone Star sewer repairs. We're going to be closing out this project tonight, and it's actually a good change order, a decrease. But this was a CDBG project for Lone Star where we did a lot of lining of pipes, and I believe they did a lot of lining of the sewer manholes, which had the old brick manholes. So this will help with I&I and help keep that water out of our sewage system. All right, those are just a few things that were going on the public works side. Want to give our council an update on streetlights. We know it's still a hot topic. I did try to get Entergy to be at this meeting tonight, but they were unable to be here, and will have promised that they will be at our first meeting in April. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the level of kind of damage from Ida. As far as streetlights go, there were 884 that were damaged on the East Bank. Now remember, these are streetlights attached to wooden poles. On the West Bank, there were 1,159 damaged. That brings the total to 2,043. Crews are out. You will see contractor that Entergy is using. They usually will have 2 bucket trucks per crew, and they're going out. So to date, per area, this is how many repairs have been made. In DeZalmans, 124 lights have been repaired. In Destrehan, 25 lights have been repaired. In Kelowna, 19 lights have been repaired. In Luling, 120 lights have been repaired. In Norco, 140 lights have been repaired. And in St. Rose, 162 lights have been repaired. You will notice that Muntz is not on that list, but before this information was sent to me, They told me that Muntz, which is where they started, was at about a 98% completion rate. Muntz is probably, I would assume, done by now. That brings a total to 608 lights that have been repaired so far by Entergy, and this represents about 30% of the total lights that were damaged have been repaired. And these numbers are probably on the low side now because this information was as of last Thursday, or maybe last Wednesday. So it is starting to progress. Over on animal control, we wanted to talk about some good things. The Greater Goods Charities Flights, as you know, we do these often. The Animal Control Office participated in 3 of these flights this week, where the Greater Goods flights covered the transport costs of all the 9 cats and 2 dogs that were in the shelter. So, again, if you're unfamiliar with this, there are shelters in and across the country that have a deficit of animals. They're looking to adopt animals, and there are other areas of the country where, frankly, they have too many. And in an effort not to euthanize any of these animals, Greater Good allows us and other shelters across the country to fly these pets to areas where there are people looking to adopt them. So this is a good thing for these animals. Over on RSVP, Project Sunshine Bags, and this is our seniors from our RSVP organization working to create over 2,000 activity kits for Project Sunshine, which is a nonprofit organization centered on bringing joy to the play to pediatric patients. So these are going to go to pediatric patients, and we want to thank our RSVP volunteers for taking the time to do this and bringing some joy to these kids. If you want more info on this project, or frankly, if you want to join RSVP, you can contact RSVP at 985-783-5090. Over in Parks and Recreation, we had a great week last week. I think it was last July, we cut the ribbon on Parkette Park, which was a collaboration between St. Charles Parish and the Ed Reed Foundation. And Justin Jefferson, also a native of St. Rose, decided that he wanted to put his mark on it. So the wide receiver dedicated a Compan sports and fitness equipment through an organization that he partners with, Optimum Nutrition, which builds better lives through its Building Better Lives initiative, which is centered around fitness and accessibility for all people. If you haven't been able to go out and see it, it is really, really cool. There is no electricity going to any of the machines, but when you get on the machine and you start moving, it generates electricity. You can actually connect your phone to it, adjust the resistance on the machines through your phone. So it is pretty cool. And the folks over at Compan, which is an international company, said that this is the first of its kind in Louisiana. So very cool to have that here in St. Charles Parish. And we look forward to more partnerships such as this in the future. This equipment set is around $175,000 in value. So a very great thing for our residents in St. Rose and for all of St. Charles Parish, and we hope that everybody will utilize it. If you want to know the location of the park, it's 190 Short Street in St. Rose. Okay, the Fish Dat Rodeo is coming up. So mark your calendars for the second annual Fish Dat Rodeo. This is a new program that we offer through Parks and Recreation, which we've been trying to get out of the traditional space of the baseball, basketball, football. I say get out of. We were trying to expand our offerings outside of that traditional traditional recreation space. So on Saturday, May 21st, at the Bonacary Spillway boat launch, at the lower guide levee side, we will have more information on this, but the second annual Fish Dat Rodeo will take place, so be on the lookout for more information. Last year we had great participation. Okay. Want to talk about Hurricane Ida recovery centers. St. Charles Parish's long-term recovery group and Rebuild United have invited the World Renewed Disaster Response Services into our community for those that Hurricane Ida left with financial and emotional or household needs. World Renewed Disaster Response Services will be collecting data and giving back to the United Way of St. Charles Parish to help connect with those in need and connecting resources with those in need. So there is more information on there. And I believe we have posted this, and we will continue to post it to make sure, and run it on the channel to make sure our residents have access to this information. But there are 3 walk-in centers for this. It's the RPCC, which is the River Parishes Community College at the United Way campus. Open this week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday, March 26th from 9 a.m. to noon. And then again on Monday, March 28th, which is Thursday, through and March 31st from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. as well. Then again, Friday, April 1st from 9 a.m. to noon. They will also have one at the St. Rose Community Center, which is open through Friday of this week from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then at the Kelowna Community Center, open next week from March 28th through the 31st from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then again on Friday, April 1st from 9 a.m. to noon. Again, I said we do have a lot of job openings right now, and we are working to get those. You are going to see some signs going up throughout St. Charles Parish, noting that we have open jobs. We certainly would love to hire St. Charles Parish residents for those jobs, but the jobs we have open right now are animal control officer, a carpenter position, distribution maintenance and waterworks, equipment operator 1, 2, 3, and 4 in public works, grass cutters 1 and 2, groundskeeper, laborer, pump technician helper, and shop mechanic helper. And that concludes my report.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Jewell. Oh, Julia, I'm sorry. Ms. Comey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that report, especially the portion relative to streetlights. I know it's hard to fathom, but unfortunately, we're like less than 3 months away from hurricane season. So I'm wondering if maybe, glad to hear that Entergy will be here in April to talk to us. Maybe, if you don't mind, maybe request from them that they give us an update on the power poles, not just streetlights. I know, when they talked to us during the storm, right after the storm, they said we're gonna have to piecemeal some things. They're all operational now, but there's still some that are, we clearly still see poles hanging and lines hanging. So I'm wondering if they have a timeline or a plan to put that permanent repair in place, if they're going to do that before this storm season or not. I know it's a lot of work, but just curious if they're going to try to secure some things, because some of them, you look at that and go, I don't know how that's even standing or working, but it is. So maybe they can give us an update on that when they come in April.
Yeah, I will request that from them for, I'll ask them to get us both electricity side, streetlight side, and
Perfect.
everything in between.
Thank you.
Matt, are they also, this contractor is handling the state road stuff, or is that going to be a separate guy?
My understanding is that they do have 2 separate contractors, but both are working on the same stuff. So I'm not sure exactly how they're dispatching those folks. But I have seen Pike working on state highways. And I just want to mention this, especially on Highway 90. If you recall, they replaced basically from Domino's all the way to McDonald's every single pole. And with that with those poles came the streetlights. And so you probably see that they have these box lights that they actually call vector lights that are shining to try to illuminate Highway 90. We have told them that we do not want that to be the permanent fix. We want the long arms that will reach over and shine down onto Highway 90, and anywhere in the parish that had a streetlight on any major highway in the parish that was actually shining down. So those are on order. It's a specialty item because it's an especially long arm, and those are coming in, so they know to replace those vector lights as well.
Because that was the question they had, because the River Road through Norco into Destrehan, a lot of those poles and a lot of the lighting along River Road from St. Rose to the Kenner line, same thing, damaged.
Yeah, there's going to be some more information out in a Herald Guide article this week as well about streetlights. They reached out to us. I do want to mention 2 things that I just forgot in regards to streetlights. There are some areas that have decorative poles, and so those have to be ordered. They're taking a little bit longer time to come in. And there are, we fixed about 700, was that the number, Samantha? A little over 700 streetlights on metal poles. There's about 100 left that have not been repaired that require underground work. So we're going out one by one and reboring these lines if we need to. Some of them are what have been described as feed issues. So Entergy actually has to correct the feed. So anytime we have to reconnect to Entergy's electricity, Entergy has to do that.
Okay, thank you. Ordinances, resolutions introduced for publication, public hearings, Monday, April 4th, 2022, 6 p.m., council chambers, Courthouse, Hanville, 2022-0073, 2022-0078. Copies have been made and placed at your seats for 2022-0081. Planning and zoning petitions, 2022-0069, ordinance to amend St. Charles Parish zoning ordinance of 1981 to change the zoning classifications from R1A to R1AM on lots 10 and 11, Block N, Magnolia Ridge Park Subdivision, municipal address 359 Lily Street, Boutique, as requested by Artist Nelson for John and Marguerite Nelson. Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant's making this request to place 2 manufactured homes on these lots. The department, as well as the Planning Commission, recommended denial, finding that the request did not meet any of the evaluation criteria. We consider this to be a spot zoning and recommend denial. Thank you.
Okay, file number 2022-0069 is open for public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name, address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion? Mr. Dufresne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael, was there ever trailers on this lot?
I don't have any permit record of that was cited. To my knowledge, no.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Okay, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0069. And that motion fails with 8 nays. 2022-0070, an ordinance to amend the St. Charles Parish zoning ordinance of 1981 to change the zoning classifications from R1AM to C2 on lots 1B, St. Rose Gardens, municipal address 118 St. Rose Avenue, St. Rose, as requested by Carla Elizabeth Patera Grunberg. Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is to extend the C2 zoning from the block coming from River Road. The department and the Planning Commission recommend approval, finding that it meets a majority of the evaluation criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. File number 2022-0070 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any council discussion? Ms. Cluley.
Mr. Albert, what did they plan to do with the property that they're changing it to C2?
We don't have any definite plans at this time. Their application says they were intending to put it on the market.
But they wanted to rezone it first. Thank you.
Is there any other council discussion? Okay, please cast your votes for file number 2022-00. Ms. Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Albert, the map that's in our agenda, 112, that's a building closer to River Road. What is 112? It's page 67. Mixed-use living?
Subway?
That's Subway?
I think so. I think so.
So everything in the front of 118 all the way to River Road's commercial?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other council discussion? Okay, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0070. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. Okay, ordinance is scheduled for public hearings introduced at a previous meeting. 2022-0060, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of change order number 1, final, for the Parish Project S18-1201, Lone Star Sewer Rehabilitation, to decrease the contract amount by $34,100 and increase the contract time by 122 days. Mr. DeGeneres.
As Mr. Jewell spoke earlier, this is just to close out this project. We are giving money back. There are some items on there that weren't needed during construction, so it is a deductive change order. This was to repair the sewer lines in Lone Star subdivision by lining them and lining the manholes as well.
Thank you, Mr. DeGeneres. File number 2022-0060 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion? Ms. Cluley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I'm correct, this project was through a grant.
Yes, ma'am.
It was a much-needed project in this area. They
Yes, ma'am.
went a long time without this being done. Appreciate the effort that was
We
done.
haven't seen any complaints since it's been done.
All right,
so.
thank you.
Is there any other council discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0061. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, 0061. Oh, I apologize. 2022-0061. Please cast your votes. Right here. 0060.
There you go.
Thank you.
Too much sushi back there, boy.
MSG got it.
Yeah, MSD got me. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. Okay, 2022-0061, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a change order 1 for the Parish Project S170601, Luling Oxidation Pond Rehabilitation and Upgrades, to increase the contract amount by $489,238.60 and increase the contract time by 199 days. Mr. Gianaris.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one is a little bit higher. There was actually 6 changes on this project. This project started back in 2017 before I came on board. When it first went out to bid, it was over budget, so they actually pulled a lot of things out of it and rebid it. I felt once I got here, there were some critical path things that were pulled out that really need to be put back in. Some of those were put back in. The biggest change on this is there's 5 force mains that come to the pond, and they cross the Cousins Canal. 3 of those force mains are on an old wooden deck that is slowly falling apart. If it falls apart, we could lose all 3 of those force mains. So the proposed was to do a modification. We're manifolding all these into one pipeline. Originally, it was going to be inside the plant. We've decided to do it outside the plant on the road and have one crossing coming across the Cousins Canal. So really, it's a health safety thing, and the fact that if we lose those 3 force mains, to repair them without it all going in the canal. So that was an option to do that. Unfortunately, the cost of material has gone up dramatically. It's ductile iron, and that's really the largest cost is the cost of the material. And then some of the other changes were energy. Originally, we were going to bring the power in off of transformers on a pole. I think after the storm, they reevaluated some of that, so now they want to put the transformer on the ground. So we had to modify that and actually build a slab for it, so that's one of the changes as well. Once again, 2017 is when it started. The MCC building and the generator pad is right adjacent to the canal. The canal has eroded from the original survey, so we've had to modify that slab design to allow for that erosion. So any future erosion, we shouldn't have a problem with that slab failing. So that was another change that also went on there.
All right, thank you.
And then the time is really for the rain delays that we've had over the last year.
Okay, file number 2022-0061 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any council discussion? Mr. Dufresne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have a question as much as a comment of something since I've been up here, kind of came to a conclusion. Mr. DeGeneres, I called and spoke with me, answered everything I had about this, and he was forward with it, and it was before his time or before my time on the council. But as an observation, since I've been up here, we go through a lot of engineers, and I think there's some kind of, because we have a lot of change orders, and it's all stuff we're having to add at the end. So it's my feeling, just my personal feeling, that we have a comprehension or a disconnect when we're dealing with engineers and we tell them what we expect on this project. I think they're only giving us exactly what we tell them. They're not engineering things as a whole. Because I'm in construction, and it's my experience that if you're going to do something, we shouldn't have to be adding freaking handrails to the end when a contractor has us bent over a barrel and it could increase it more. Or rotten pieces of wood or something that could have been changed early on. So that's my whole take. It seems like 90% of our projects go to change orders, and it's all things that we have to add later on that either the contractor comes up and says, hey, this isn't right, we need to do this. So I don't understand why when we're paying for it, and we're paying good money to these engineers, that everything isn't engineered completely, where they're trying to take care of everything as they go out and look at it as an option and say, this is what you guys want, but we had to engineer it this way. That's just my opinion, and it kind of dumbfounds me every time we have a project. We have a change order. And I understand on this one, I mean, great. I think what he did was perfect, getting it to one piece of force main across the canal. That's very, very smart. But that's all things that probably should have been done at the beginning. We shouldn't have had to go this far into the ball game to get it done. So that's just my 2 cents.
You know, like I said, I wasn't involved in this project from the original. I think the issue became is when it was first bid, it was so over budget, they just started pulling items out. I think there was an item to redo the deck at one time because it was a drivable deck because there's a section you could drive over it too. So I think what happened is they were trying to reduce the cost at the time to get this project through, and they pulled out, I think, more things than they should have. Once we got into construction, and we're at that point now where we're running into these things, we're in that part of that construction phase where we're coming up to them, and those issues are starting to come back up. It's like, yeah, it was okay to reduce it, but you really couldn't have. I mean, I think they were just pulling items out just to get the numbers down so they could go and accept the bids at the time. But at the point, we're at that critical point where I just feel that it needs to be put in. And that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I wasn't here when we first did it, but now that we're in construction, I'm out there and I see it. I'd rather address it now so we don't have problems. You know, do a $7 million project, and then we have problems a year later. I
totally get it. I'm glad you're doing it, looking out for us that way. It's every time, every project we have.
Mr. Jewell.
Hey, Chairman. I don't agree that on every project that we have these issues. I'll tell you specifically to this issue, this was the first project that I dealt with as parish president. About 2 weeks into my term as parish president, so you're looking at late July or maybe early February of 2020, this bid got opened up. So the last administration put it out for bid, and it just so happens that the bid period and all that stuff happened where I came in office. So again, the first one we dealt with, it came in way over budget. Our options were, let's start pulling some stuff out and do what we know we actually have to do, the actual needs. We worked with the previous wastewater director, or that we didn't do the rehabilitation project at all because it was over budget. So that, and I'll agree with David, that's when we had to start pulling out things to get the price down. Again, David came in and said, this really needs to be in there, and the money's there now. Let's get it done. But that, I just wanted to kind of ditto what David was saying. I was there when they opened the bids. It was way above, and I was put in the position of we either start to pull stuff out or we leave this oxidation pond in the condition that it was in since the 1970s.
All right. Any other council discussion? Okay. Please cast your votes for file number 2022-0061. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. 2022-0062, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with C.H. Fenstermaker and Associates, LLC, to perform engineering services for the Primrose Canal cleaning and improvements, project number P200202, in the amount not to exceed $637,824. Mr. Bingham.
Thank you, Chair. This is a project that's been long coming. We started to try and get it on the books before the hurricane. We got kind of derailed going through the hurricane. We're bringing it back now, and it is a rather large project from the design standpoint. It's got 6 phases to it. They'll be designed and constructed in 5 because we're combining phase 2 and 5 because it's just that in those areas we're just cleaning the canal and reshaping the banks. All the other ones have sheet pile along the southern bank where we're having erosion and some problems with that area. And phase 1A actually has sheet pile on both sides and ties into the Cousins Canal and wraps around to make that connection. So they're the cost for each one of these things, phase 1A is the most expensive with the amount of sheet pile work and the alignment that it has at $162,343. Phase 1B is $60,038. Phase 3 is $41,254. And phase 4 is $99,726. And these are design fees. Phase 2 and 5 is only $43,463. Total engineering fees of $406,824. We do have some geotechnical work that needs to be done on this one. The surveying was done back before the storm, and we have the survey already in hand. Geotechnical services are about $16,000, and then we have in this permits. Permits will be required for the work that we're doing. This canal has a permit on it right now for drainage maintenance, but we're doing actually physical work to the canal, so we're going to have to go back and amend our permits to get them updated so that we can do this work. That'll cost about $12,500 total, and then we have our resident inspection services already in this contract, and the total for that is $202,500. Total contract price, as the chairman said, is $637,824. And we would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Bingham. File number 2022-0062 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Council discussion. Ms. Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll echo that this is a long time coming. I'm really glad to see this happening. I've actually been budgeting for this for many years before you guys were even in the administration. So really happy to see it coming to fruition. I just want to clarify, you mentioned, I know it's phased, it's in phases. It looks like all the phases have some form of stabilization and erosion control. You said one did not, but it looks
Actually,
like phase 3 and 2 and 5 both
phase
are the
2
same
and 5.
location.
Phase 2 and 5 are the ones that do not. Phase 2 is it's an area where we already have a lot of bank and there's no structures really close to it.
Phase 3 is the same location and it says stabilization and erosion control. So it's listed.
Phase 3 does have
Right.
stabilization and
5 are
erosion
together.
control. Phase 2 does not need it. Phase 5 is all the way down at the far end towards the west. And again, we have open space so we can lay the banks back.
Okay. So my comment was, based on the scope of the work in attachment A, it looks like every bit of the stretch has some form of stabilization and erosion control. Is that not right?
I don't believe so, ma'am.
So phase 3,
Let me take a
judge
look.
property line to River Oaks, stabilization and erosion control and cleaning.
It's the stabilization in that area does not require sheet pile.
Right, doesn't have to, and I think that's what we talked about. As long as there's some form of stabilization, doesn't have to be sheet pile.
It's in that case where we can slope the banks.
And maybe it's stable, but it was just to identify, is it stable enough? If it's not, let's figure out what we need to do with it.
And we can slope the banks
Yeah,
there
which
because we don't have
which
any.
is a form of
any-
stabilization. Yeah.
We don't have structures close by.
Understandably, yeah. Okay, so just as long as it's addressed. It doesn't have to be sheet pile, it's addressed. I got you. Okay, very happy. Hope we don't have any more weather delays, but I know that's not in our control. Thank you.
Is there any more council discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0062. And that passes with 8 yeas. 2022-0063, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a contract with Sea Level Construction Incorporated for project number P080905-5F, CPRA project number BA-0244, Ellington Structures Kellogg Pump Station T-Wall as part of the West Bank Hurricane Protection Levy project in the amount of $4,323,888. Mr. Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Ellington Structures Kellogg T-Wall is part of the Upper Barataria report that was recently approved. It's an integral part of the levee system, which is now the federal system. The existing levee at elevation 7.5 is going to be replaced with concrete frontal protection to elevation 14.5. The wall is designed to meet Corps engineering standards, and it was also reviewed and approved by CPRA to make sure it met the compliance with the guidelines for the new Upper Barataria system. Sea level is the low bid at amount of $4,323,888, and CPRA is participating with a $2.5 million grant, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Sam. File number 2022-0063 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any council discussion? Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to thank the CPRA for participating as a part of this project. I want to thank Sam Sholey for his continued work on the levee, and again, I want to thank the council as well for their continued support on levee projects for the West Bank of St. Charles Parish. There's been a lot of work done thus far, even though that we have not a commitment, but at least we have a positive chief's report, and we're working on getting a congressional authorization for the project and then congressional funding. We have said that we are going to continue to press on and do as many of these structural projects or many of the projects on our checklist as we can, and make sure that we're doing it in a way that CPRA gets credit for it, and that goes towards our state cost share, since CPRA is the non-federal sponsor of the levee. So I would appreciate the council's support on this project.
Is there any other council discussion? Okay, seeing none, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0063. And that passes with 8 yeas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Sam. 2022-0064, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of Amendment Number 1 to Ordinance Number 21-11-4, which approved the professional services agreement with GIS Engineering LLC to perform engineering services for the Muntz Pump Station Number 2, Parish Project Number P210806. Mr. Bingham.
Thank you, Council Chair. Based on preliminary work of the engineer, the exact location of Muntz Pump Station Number 2 between the KCS tracks and the Airline Highway has been determined. That's what these services are needed for, because before that, we couldn't really figure out where to do all of these. The engineer is now ready to proceed with the topographic survey, the permitting, and the cultural resource survey of the site. These services are necessary for the completion of the design process, but could not be quantified until an exact location had been selected and approved for the pump station. The engineer is requesting that these services be added so they can continue to advance the design of the project. The permitting is $40,000, the topographic survey is $40,000, and the cultural resource surveying is $17,200 for a total of $97,200. And I'd also like to echo something that the parish president said. This has been made possible through a lot of hard work by a lot of individuals, including Mr. Sholey, who was up here earlier. And we probably wouldn't be where we are right now without his presence on this project.
Couldn't agree with you more. File number 2022-0064 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any council discussion? I want to say, echo exactly what you said. You know, we have come a long way in a short time with a lot of these drainage projects. We're putting forward every day, every meeting we have. So I think we've all come to the realization that this is the thing we need to do. The Muntz Pump Station, number 2, is going to solve a lot of problems for a lot of people in Muntz. The projects that we've approved already for the West Bank, especially with the Go Mesa money, the bonding money, every day, every meeting we have, stepping forward. I think this is the right direction. We just need to keep doing that. I think we all made promises to people on that night when those people were lined up in here that we would truly address drainage issues in this term. I think Mr. Jewell's doing a fine job. I think us as a council supporting him, asking the questions, like Mr. Dufresne said about the engineers, is what we need to do to keep doing this. Mr. Bingham, I think you've done a wonderful job with your staff. Mr. Sam is doing good. I think I'm going to kiss Chip Klein next time I see him. I really do. He's really been good. He's working with us. Matt was able to, like Matt likes to use, finagle $10 million out of him. So I know, but we're going to keep working on it. So every chance we get.
Don't kiss him.
All right. Don't kiss him. We'll get him. We'll get the money in the pocket. But I think this is what we need to do. We need to keep telling our story. You know, anybody to listen to us. So we as advocates need to do it. So I would appreciate your support. It's in my district, and I think the people of St. Charles Parish want to see us do this. Okay, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0064. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. 2022-0068, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Bawaka and Bonora Engineers and Consultants, LLC. Y'all excuse my once pronunciation. Yeah. I'm having Michelle do phonics for me now. To perform engineering height services for Hill Heights drainage improvements, Destrayan project number P190802, in the amount not to exceed $373,992.70. Mr. Bingham.
Thank you, Council Chair. And I will say the first time I saw that name, I couldn't pronounce it either. So This project is the result of actual damage that we had on the Hill Heights East Ditch. Part of the bulkhead actually failed before the storm, and we were attempting before the storm to actually repair that damage through trying to go out with a contractor. We could not determine what the depth of the piles needed to be through that process, and we've just, after the storm, we decided to go start working towards getting an engineer. We've done all the surveying, we've done all the geotechnical work in this area, so we're ready to go with the project. The engineer is now had done some work on conceptual design also on this. So we are ready to start this project. As you can see, there is a fee for conceptual phase. That's work that the engineer actually has already done in this process. And then we have our basic services in 2 phases. The first phase is the area where the bulkhead actually failed. We want to get that done as quickly as possible and on the street. And the second phase is the northern end, which is actually still holding, but is in deteriorated condition. So we want to get that one done as well. We do have additional topographic survey of 12,370 and some geotechnical work that needs to be done in the canal, and also some permitting. So this project is much needed, and we would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Bing. File number 2022-0068 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, I'm Walter Pillier, Duquette Drive in Destrehan, and I live in the watershed that this particular canal belongs to. And I was aware that this was a problem some time ago by talking to Mr. Bingham, and I was surprised to see it on the agenda, so I went out and looked at it. And if none of you have actually seen what he's talking about, the failure is pretty bad. It's really bad. And my concern is this drains from, say, Ormond Oaks all the way over to, say, River Oaks, south of the CN tracks, part of the Hill Heights baseball field, and then Nottoway. I went over to Nottoway today, and I accessed a neighbor's yard, their permission, took a look at it. It's really bad, and I've got pictures that I just, waved in front of you here from the opposite side, which is the Hill Heights baseball field. I fully support what this ordinance is about to fund. I think it's a great deal. I wish we'd have done it a long time ago. However, what Mr. Bingham was talking about this is almost an emergency. What's happening here is this is going to end up bridging, this bulkhead will end up bridging this canal. And eventually, if that happens, and we've got a project schedule here, and I'm not trying to find fault, which is a project schedule here that takes you 165 days to get to the point where you do any construction. I don't think we can bear 165 days. We have to look at this in terms of an emergency. Based on what it's draining, you could have yourself another flood situation if this thing bridges. So my point is, please, somehow, look into getting an emergency amount of funding to get this one little section. It's probably about 125 to 150 feet, and it's been bulging for years, but it finally failed very, very bad. And I'd appreciate if there's something that could be done by the parish, and I'm telling you, this is an emergency. So I appreciate your consideration. Certainly I support this, but we could use some more, and the areas that this particular canal covers flooded in 2020, right? And this is not my street, not the area, but for where I'm talking about is east of me. And this could result again in a flood with a serious amount of rainfall. So I'd suspect that we need to do something. By the way, Public Works did a fantastic job of gouging out the canal. You notice that this project covers the east side of the canal only. That's where there's partial sheet pile, and it's not vinyl, as this is noted in the scope. It's steel. But I'll tell you, the work that was done in gouging out the canal resulted in a reduction of the headwater height south of the tracks after it had been done. An excellent job was done. But I'd hate to see this thing bridge. I'd hate to see a restriction come about where all of a sudden now we've got water building up again, and south of the tracks, people get flooded again. And that's really all I wanted to say, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. Seeing any other public hearing? Okay, public hearing is closed. Council discussion. Ms. Fonseca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Miles, you and I spoke about this last week. I had some questions because, throughout the last 2 years, we've started developing projects in conjunction with the ongoing studies. And this one wasn't really on our radar. It just appeared out of nowhere. Now, I do know from working, previously that the area was an issue. And after speaking with you, I don't have a problem with this, although it looks like it's going to be pretty expensive to complete. But I'd like to get it on the radar, so I looked back at the capital improvements projects list, and it's not currently on the last list, so if we can add it.
Yes, ma'am, we'll add it.
Thank you.
If it's not there, I will definitely add it.
Mr. Jewell.
I just want to say that this project is in line with the master plan. When we looked at the Ormond watershed and the results of what was submitted to the parish, the projects consisted of, now, Miles, if I'm not mistaken, the first section of the canal we're going to take care of is the section that is buckling. But we are going to design the full canal because as a part of the St. Charles Parish Drainage Master Plan, it calls for these canals to be sheet piled. It calls for basically every canal, basically from the railroad tracks all the way to the pump station to be sheet piled. But this is one of them that is in desperate need of it. And again, this is in line with the master plan. The dimensions will be in line with the master plan as well.
Ms. Billings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo what Mr. Pillier said about this. I visited this bulkhead several times in the last year, and I am alarmed at the rate that it has deteriorated as well as the level of the deterioration. So I'm very glad to see it get started on this because it's so important to the Destrehan flooding situation that if it does totally collapse, then we're in trouble. So I will wholeheartedly say yes and vote on this.
Mr. Dufresne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm for this. I mean, it's obviously needed. Here's my take, though. This is the fourth one that we have ditch or bank stabilization since I've been on the council. Can we not have one plan that we use for them all, and we just pay the engineers to do the geotechnical and the surveying instead of having to redesign the wheel again? Can the parish not have one standard? I understand you might have to put a 25-foot pile or a 50-foot pile or a 10-one. That makes a difference. I get it. But since I can, off my memory, this is the fourth one. So we don't have a plan like the standard, hey, when we're going to do ditch embankment, canal embankment, this is what we want done. So we saving ourselves cutting into this 373 by maybe 150. Get them. And you just said they already did the geotechnical, right? You did geotechnical, the survey's done. We don't have an engineer on staff who could design this, where the parish could do it themselves. It's not rocket science. We're just driving some sheet piles down. So I get it. I'm for this project, believe me. If Mr. Walter comes up and says something about it, I'm with him because I know he knows what he's talking about. And he's got everybody on the East Bank's good. But I'm saying we keep doing this, these stabilizations, and we go back from square one with an engineer to do everything all over again. I know Matt's going to disagree with me, and you're an engineer, you probably will too. But there has to be somewhere where we can cut into this, where we can say, this is what we want. This is what we're using. You guys give us the soil and give us a survey, and then we can go from there.
So to answer your question, so the first thing is every geotechnical analysis is going to look at the soil that this is supporting this. And in this case, the soil failed. We've looked at it. This was not, I don't know when this was put in, but they actually drove sheets deeper and then put short sheets in between it, and this is one of the reasons it failed. That's not the best way to do it. You have to look at the support of the soil, you got to look at the size of the sheet. You can't use the same type of sheet for every situation. It's got to be matched with the pressure that's being put on it and the bending stresses, and that's a structural engineering calculation, and having done structural engineer work, that always seems to be more expensive than just for straight civil. So it is, you do have to design almost every situation a little bit differently. And I agree with you where you can do a straightforward one, it helps, but due to geotechnical differences and the pressures on the thing, because you may have more pressure behind the wall and less embedment in front of the wall, the deeper the excavation in the canal, it all makes a difference in how you support that sheet pile. It might need to have something tied back to keep it from going into the leaning too easily, whether you're going with a cantilever or that system. So there's a lot of differences that have to be looked at for each situation. It all depends on the canal itself, what's behind the wall the wall, and there's also the point that you have to get the alignment. When someone goes out to actually drive that sheet pile, they've got to have that alignment, or you're going to have it in someone's yard. Contractors need to have those points so that they can stay on focus and stay on track. So I know it's kind of frustrating sometimes to see this type of price, but it is reasonable within the realm of engineering for this. And now the last thing is, right now my engineering staff is really they're almost overwhelmed. They're working really hard. We don't have time right now to do this. It would take us more time than the engineer.
I get it, Miles. That's what I said. I understand. But, I mean, we have to have something. We got to be able to have a standard somewhere along the line. And you can do the calculations, correct? But no one else? You're the only engineer in Public Works that can do it? Can we give Miles a $15,000 raise so he can do the calculations and save us 300-something thousand?
It'd probably cost more than that.
I mean, it's just frustrating. I mean, every other month we have one of these, and we start from A again, all the way back to Z. Thank you.
Ms. Cooley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had mentioned that some of this work is already done. We're just paying them after the fact. Is that correct?
Yes, we've actually done the geotechnical work on this one.
That they did. They did it, right? Not you.
No,
right?
not us.
Okay.
I mean, but the geotechnical was done. As I said, we were trying to go ahead, and we started trying to get this done in a different way, and we realized that we hit sort of a wall in that, so we needed to bring the engineer under our contract. We backed up. The geotechnical work has been done, and we're paying for that. So we're ahead on the design process.
The inspection for this contract moving forward, this will be the same firm that'll do the inspection once the construction begins?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but it hasn't even, they're preparing the bid, I guess, right?
They will be preparing the plans, the specs, and then we will go to bid.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. I will disagree with my colleague. There is no cookie-cutter approach to sheet piling. As Miles mentioned, soil conditions are not uniform across the parish. Driving a sheet pile along Bayou des Allemands and driving a sheet pile in Hahnville are gonna come out to two different things. You're not gonna use the same sheet pile. You're not gonna drive them the same depth. Whether or not you have a street next to what you're sheet piling, or no street, or what is the right of way you're working in? What utilities are there that you're working around? Comes into effect. I'll go a step further. The lateral pressure of the earth pushing on a sheet pile has something to do with it. again, sheet pile configurations have different applications. So there's not a cookie cutter approach. We're looking at a sheet pile that was put in by St. Charles Parish that failed, and God bless our public works guys. They did the best they could with what they had. They took those sheet piles, they pushed them in with the bucket of an excavator, however many years ago when they did it. Because we don't have the equipment ourselves to do it. And when you're looking at things like, are there homes nearby, which in this case, there are homes nearby, and the parish is going to design this project, and then we're going to send a contractor out with the scope that we wrote and said, drive these piles in there. If for some reason we cracked the slabs of these houses with the vibrations or made any kind of damage to property, what professional liability does St. Charles Parish have on our engineering? The answer is we have none. So in an instance like this, when we have a very expensive project, we're working around utilities, we're working around homes, having an engineer with the professional liability in place to protect the parish, I think is important. And with that, I will end my comments.
Ms. Fonseca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify what I meant when I said it wasn't on our radar. It may have been on the administration's radar, but it was not a project that I sat through all of the drainage study meetings. It wasn't a priority project on any of the lists. And what that does for us, we being parish-wide, is we get to hear from residents in other areas who see this on the agenda, and they ask us why yet another project is going to be contract approved for a project in this area. So yes, that's what I meant when I said not on our radar. It doesn't mean that, it's not an emergent need. I think we can all agree that it is. So thank you.
Mr. Dufresne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you point that out? Yeah. So on page 144, attachment A, what are they? The ones that are there now, are they vinyl or metal? Steel, the sheets?
I was told they were vinyl, but I thought they were steel.
They're steel.
Okay, well, you have, this project is intended to remove and replace the existing vinyl sheet piles.
And the ordinance reads steel.
And the ordinance reads steel, so we might need to fix that. And Mr. Jewell, when you were talking about all that stuff, majority of that is resolved on a survey, whether it's next to a road or a house, whatever. And also, whether an engineer designs it or you design it, someone's going to have an inspector out there with a monitor to make sure they're not vibrating people's house. And if they are going over a certain vibration, they're going to shut it down. And I promise you, the engineers that are sitting here that design it, they're going to have that. Same thing when it comes to testing of concrete, soil, impaction, whatever. You're going to have that regardless. So,
yeah. I agree with everything you're saying. I don't think it changes the fact that the parish doesn't have a professional liability on a job like that. And I believe the parish would be vulnerable in a situation if damage were to occur by the contractor or whomever.
Bottom line is we're gonna be vulnerable anyway. Whether you have a contractor, an engineer, and 6 attorneys and Morris Bart in between, it's still gonna come to us at the end. I mean, so that's null and void.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other council discussion? Do we need to change this vinyl sheet piling, or is it?
Let me take a look at the ordinance and see what the ordinance says. I'm not too worried about the contract.
Can I comment, Mr.? The ordinance reads steel. The scope of work reads vinyl.
I'm not worried about what we're pulling out.
How about we ask legal?
It says replacing.
We had the same thing with the mortar.
The ordinance looks like it doesn't indicate what is the existing sheet pile, it just says installation of new steel.
Mr. Can you turn your microphone, please?
Yes. The ordinance appears to indicate that it doesn't state the existing sheet pile, but does discuss new steel. However, attachment A, project scope, does discuss remove and replace existing vinyl, which would need to be amended to change to steel. I would prefer it be amended to have steel in there.
Can we make that amendment tonight?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to amend to reflect the scope of work in attachment A, reflect the word steel versus vinyl.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Cormier, second by Ms. Gordon, to amend this attachment A project scope to remove, to replace the steel sheet pile, correct?
If,
Replace the word, in the scope of work, replace the word vinyl with steel sheet pile.
wherever it appears,
What's that?
wherever it appears.
And anywhere else it may appear. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so a motion to amend attachment A in any other section in the project scope, replace the word vinyl with steel.
Is that for the whole contract? Are you saying that's for the whole contract?
For the whole contract, correct? Okay. So it's a motion to replace the word vinyl with steel in the whole contract.
That'll help us avoid a change order in the future.
Mr. Uber, you good with that?
I'm good with the change. I don't know how many times it appears vinyl versus steel. I have not read word for word to tell you that.
If it was over a certain amount, will we have to re-advertise, or can we just, is it okay?
According to what Miles said, I don't think it affects what the work that was being done.
Okay.
The engineering is for the new installation.
Right.
The new installation would be steel. So if we would go to bid with the
The scope
steel.
of work for construction is going to be a different
But-
contract, I understand that, but
I think
I don't want it to get
it's
lost in
appropriate to
translation.
go ahead and change it.
Yeah,
What
change
that
it
says
now.
is the existing vinyl. It's not
It
existing
says
vinyl. It's-
replace existing vinyl.
Yes,
Right.
replace, but it doesn't say what to replace it with, which is a part of the design process, which would be steel.
Okay, so where's the confusion? We got this or no?
I would replace it since there is a consensus here. Mr. Pillier said it's actually steel sheet
Currently,
pile.
you mean?
Yes, it is existing steel sheet pile.
So we did it correctly, replace the existing
Yes.
steel.
Yes, replace
Yep.
vinyl where, as Corey said, replace vinyl in all locations in there
That's
with
the
steel.
motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to replace. We have a motion to replace the word vinyl with steel throughout the whole contract. Okay, and we need to cast our votes to amend it. Okay. Apologize, Michelle, correct me. So now we're going to have to reopen a public hearing, 2022-0068 as amended. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding this item? Please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0068 as amended. Okay, and that motion passes 8 yeas. Now we're going to go ahead and vote on that. Okay. Please cast your votes for file number 2022-0068 as amended. We did the public hearing. We did the public hearing, okay. Okay. All right, we're going to have to open 2022-0068 to public hearing. Does anyone like to come up and speak regarding the item? Please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any council discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes on file number 2022-0068 as amended. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. (2022-0071), an ordinance to amend the St. Charles Parish zoning ordinance of 1981 as amended, Section 15A, 2, regarding Planning Commission meeting and minutes. Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, there is a requirement for verbatim minutes in planning commission items dealing with ordinances going to council. We are requesting to remove that portion of the code. The verbatim minutes are generated through the meeting videos already, so we're spending a lot of staff time to generate those. It requires a specific skill set, which is difficult to hire for at this point. And we often encounter problems sending applications from the commission to the council because it takes time for those minutes to be created, and that's one of the items that we turn in with them. So what we and the Planning Commission are requesting is to eliminate that requirement, to rely on the meeting video and the minutes that are generated by motion through Granicus, very similar to what the council does now.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. File number 2022-0071 is now open for public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to come up and speak regarding this item? Please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Walter Pilia again, Duquette Drive. I don't want to sound like a pedantic, right? But if you're talking about, and I want to make sure I understood this, if you're talking about getting rid of minutes which are written, I want to remind you that platforms for viewing files over time can change in the ability to access those, let's say 20 years from now. I'm just saying. All right, I went through an exercise in business where we had to pull up files from a previous job, which was only about 15 years earlier, and we could not get files read. The platforms had changed. The software could not access, the newer software could not access this stuff. So my point is, before you do this, at least consider what you're talking about doing. I went to Jefferson Parish to get some records one day. They have now taken all of their paper copies, and they've had a contractor go in and scan all of this stuff and then catalog it, and then they threw away their paper copies. Now, when we're looking for such documents, we page through. There are dog-eared pages. You can't read what's on them. There are blurred pages. You can't read what's there. So before you do this, just consider what you're doing. And that's, I didn't even think I was going to speak on this, but I didn't think this was this is important, guys. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Walton. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Is there any council discussion? Ms. Billings.
Yes, Mr. Albert, I have questions about this. So in the event that there's some confusion among the council members about what we're voting on, will video be available to be pulled up at the moment that we're looking at for the previous meeting? Or we just have to rely on what the recommendation was and the synopsis is?
Well, remember, you will still have the minutes, the motion minutes, and the record of what was voted on, basically who spoke and when, or what motions were made by the people on the dais.
Right. But we will not have the ability to have thoughtful discussion among our council members here without the benefit of video or a synopsis of what was said. It's relying on the council to previously view this and then have another meeting where we can then discuss amongst ourselves outside of this forum about what the meeting was about? What I'm trying to get at is saying that you have approved this and your recommendation and for approval of this is all we'll have to rely on other than just the ordinance and the synopsis of this?
The council report, the summary, the report is substantial on any of these. I mean, several hours of staff time go into each one every month. And yeah, you would have the minutes, the maps, the analysis, and the summary.
But my point is, we would not have it available as if it was happening here tonight to have a discussion about this. There would be no synopsis. We just get the ordinance and then that you have recommended that we approve it. Is that the way I'm reading it?
This is just for the meeting minutes, like the record of any
narrative.
Yeah.
So we don't get the narrative.
Of the people speaking at the meeting. That's correct. It would be just like how council functions now.
Okay, I don't know that I can vote on that. I feel like it's important that we be able to read it and discuss it if there's confusion about what you're actually putting forward. Thank you.
Ms. Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do feel a very similar way to what Councilwoman Billings just mentioned. I have referred to the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings for 9 years. I probably refer to them more than once on each case when I'm reviewing my agenda, and then in the heat of the moment here as well, oftentimes, to see how the rundown of the issue happened. If there's a discrepancy between the recommendation and the commission vote, I'm going to look at that and try to make a best case scenario vote. We're the body that comes next. We don't always fall in line with what the recommendations are. We don't always fall in line with the vote of the Planning Commission. And I think it's that narrative that gives us a real life look at it. I understand we can go and watch the meetings. We can even attend the meetings, which, can be timely sometimes. And I think it's helpful for us to have that. Can we ask what the reason for this is? Why did it come to be? Are we shorthanded? Is there a staffing issue? Is it a time constraint? Is it something we need to be aware of?
Wendy, our administrative assistant, retired recently.
Okay.
And in filling that job, there's rarely anyone that can take verbatim minutes.
Because they don't have time to watch the meeting. Possibly.
It's a skill. It's a skill. So that was part of it. We've moved towards technology solutions. We've also tried to copy what the council does and their procedures with the Planning Commission over time. So because you all rely on the meeting videos for your records, that's what we were looking to do. And this is only for one specific application type. This is just for the ones with ordinances. It's not for everything.
Do we have verbatim someone who does the transcribing for ZBA? Are we required to do that? Or
No, we're not required to do that. It's only for this.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either.
I feel the same way, Ms. Coleman and Ms. Billings are. Having been a ZBA member for 9 years and served as a councilman, I use those testimonies, their transcripts, to my decisions. Look back on it. I don't think we want to get away with it, get away from that. I can understand your concerns about the staffing and this, but it gives us opportunity to review it when we get our agendas. It also gives us an opportunity at these meetings, if there's any questions, like Ms. Comey said before, we can go look at it. I don't know. I don't think where we would say if I had a question, you'd have to pull up the tape of the meeting and we'd have to watch it. I mean, basically to answer my questions. But I would ask that we would keep it like it is. I mean, I know it may be a cost burden. We may have to add some money or something to your budget, but I see the helpfulness. I see the importance of having that dictated transcript available to us at any time. So, Mr. Jewell.
I think I can see where this is going. As far as the vote goes, we can look at options to hire either a stenographer or a virtual stenographer and look at it that way. I don't know what the costs are associated with that. Michael, if you want to go ahead and just look into that, and we can come back to the council with that option. That way, you all keep those notes. Like Michael said, sitting there and typing out everything that is said very quickly is a skill, and being able to keep that in your brain. Stenography is also a very much a learned skill, yes, and takes years of training. So that would be the other option that we could do for the council.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Any other council discussion? Okay, please cast your votes for file number 2022-0071. And that motion fails with 5 nays and 3 yeas. Okay, next on our agenda, a motion and a second is needed to deviate from the regular order of the agenda to take up file number 2022-0080, Update regarding St. Charles Parish's ongoing IDA insurance claims and potential litigation issues. It's a matter not on agenda. I have a motion by Ms. Fonseca, second by Mr. Gibbs, to deviate from the regular order agenda to take up file number 2022-0080. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak on the deviation? Please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public comment on the deviation is closed. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes on the deviation only. That passes with 8 yeas. A motion and a second is needed to go into executive session. I'll make the motion by Councilman Fisher, second by Councilman Dufresne. Please cast your votes to go into executive session. And that motion passes 8 yeas. All council members present, Parish President Matthew Jewell, Legal Services Director Corey Ube, Legal Services Assistant Director Robert Raymond, Mr. Dominic Impestata are going into executive session and will return shortly. Oh, Grant Dewson, I apologize. we have to do it again? Okay, just make sure you key me into it.
Okay.
Okay. Take that. So she's going
Got your roof yet? That's what. Last time we looked over there, it was green. Green. You did? What about your business?
Okay, I need a motion and a second to return to the regular order of the agenda. A motion by Ms. Billings, a second by Mr. Dufresne. Please cast your votes to return to the regular order of business. And that motion passes 8 yeas. File number 2022-0080, an update regarding St. Charles Parish's ongoing Hurricane Ida insurance claims and potential litigation issues was discussed in executive session. Ms. Gordon.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to recall the, reconsider the vote on item 2022-0071.
I have a motion by Ms. Gordon, second by Ms. Fonseca, to reconsider the vote on file number 022-0071. No public hearing, no? Okay, please cast your votes for the reconsideration of file number 2022-0071. This is a motion to be able to reconsider the vote. And that motion passes 8 yeas. Is there any council discussion on the reconsideration? Please cast your votes for file number 2022-0071. Should be right. And that motion fails with 6 nays. A motion and a second is needed to deviate from the regular order of the agenda to take up file number 2022-001, a resolution in support of the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval of 2022-5-SPU for an accessory dwelling in an R1B zoning district, Lot 733, Square 18, Ormond Country Club Estate Subdivision, 35 West Woodlawn Drive, Destrehan, as requested by Darrell and Kelly Daggerpoint. I have a motion by Ms. Billings and a second by Ms. Fonseca to deviate from the regular order of the agenda to take up file number 2022-0081. Is there anyone who'd like to come up and speak on the deviation? Please do so now. Please state your name for the address in the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm sorry, is this just for the deviation?
Yeah.
Okay. Kelly Dagerpont, 35 West Woodlawn Drive. I had received a letter saying that I was on the agenda for tonight, and then when I saw the public hearing, I wasn't on the agenda. So I would appreciate it if y'all would take a few minutes and hear and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dagerpont. Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment on a deviation is closed. Is there any council discussion on the deviation? Seeing none, please cast your votes on the deviation only. And that passes with 8 yeas. 2022-0081, a resolution in support of the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval of 2022-5-SPU for an accessory dwelling in a R1B zoning district, Lot 733, Square 18, on my Country Club Estate Subdivision, 35 West Woodlawn Drive, Destrehan, as requested by Darrell and Kelly Dagerpont. Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant's requesting a special permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit at the residence. The proposal meets all applicable special permit review criteria and requirements for ADUs. The department recommended approval, and the Planning Commission subsequently approved the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. File number 2022-0081 is now open for public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Kelly Dagerpont, 35 West Woodlawn Drive in Destrehan, Louisiana. I really want to thank y'all for taking this matter up. We had originally started planning to build a pool house that we were going to use to help take care of my father, who was very ill. He did pass in January, so at this time my mother has moved in with us. She is living with us, but the only full bathroom that we have on the first floor of our house is the master bathroom, which makes her very uncomfortable. So we had decided that we were going to build a pool house and use it for a mother-in-law suite, so she could live with us. So I would definitely appreciate y'all's consideration for this. Again, not only does it give her access to a full bathroom, but it also gives us handicap bathroom accessibility on the main floor of our house. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed. Any council discussion? Okay. Please cast your votes for file number 2021-0. It's the wrong file number. It's 2022-0081. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. Motion and a second is needed to return to regular agenda. I have a motion by Ms. Fonseca, second by Ms. Billings. Please cast your votes to return to the regular agenda. And that motion passes with 8 yeas. Appointments. Resolutions. Oh, resolutions. We gotta go back. Resolutions. 2022-0072, a resolution adopting the St. Charles Parish Language Access Plan for limited English proficiency persons for all federal grant programs. Ms. Chesson.
Good evening.
So in St. Charles Parish, we have 7% of our population that speaks a primary language other than English. So our federal grant programs require that we have a language access plan in place to accommodate these individuals when they access those funds. And they also require that the plan be adopted by the parish council. So your support in this would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. File number 2022-0072 is now open for public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to come up and speak regarding this item? Please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, public comment is closed. Any council discussion? Please cast your votes for file number 2022-0072. And the motion passes with 8 yeas. Appointments. 2022-0026, a resolution to appoint a member of the St. Charles Parish Planning and Zoning Commission as the District 3 representative. The council chairman will accept nomination from the District 3 council member to fill a vacancy caused by the resignation of the term of Mr. David P. Scheck-Snyder, Sr. Unexpired term to begin immediately and expire May 31st. Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to nominate Mr. James Jimmy Kreitcher, please.
James Jimmy Kreitcher. A motion to close by Ms. Cormier. And second by Ms. Fonseca. Please cast your votes to close the nomination. Motion passes 8 yeas. 2022-0054, a resolution to appoint a member to the St. Charles Parish Library Board of Control as a District 6 representative. The council chairman will accept nomination from the District 6 council member to fill the vacancy caused by the expiration of the term of Ms. Lori Lyons, a 5-year term to begin immediately and expire April 1st, 2027. I nominate Ms. Robin Robichaud.
Motion to close.
Motion by Ms. Cormier, second by Ms. Fonseca to close nominations. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. Meetings, announcements, notices, etc. Housing Authority, Tuesday, March 29th, 2022, 6 p.m., Council Chambers. Hospital Service District Number 1, Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, 2 p.m. in the Council Chambers. St. Charles Parish Council, Monday, April 4th, 2022, 6 p.m. in the Council Chambers. Announcements, important dates for the April 30th, 2022 School Board Special Election. Wednesday, March 30th, 2022 is the last day to register to vote in person or by mail. Saturday, April 9th, 2022 is the last day to register to vote online at govote.com. Tuesday, April 26th, 2022 is the last day to request absentee ballots by mail. Early voting, Saturday, April 16th to Monday, April 18th, Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. The West Bank, the Courthouse, 1504-45 River Road, Honville, and the East Bank, the Arterbury Building, 14564 River Road, New Sauk. Friday, April 29th, 2022, the last day for the register to receive voted absentee ballots. Saturday, April 30th, 2022 is Election Day, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I need a motion and a second for adjournment. I have a motion by Ms. Billings.
Everybody's so humble tonight.
Second by Ms. Fonseca.
Everybody's so humble. Everybody's so humble.
Please cast your votes to adjourn.
Paul what happened.
And that motion passes with 8 yeas, and we are officially adjourned. Y'all have a great evening.
Ask me what